Hello and welcome to Caldwell County Today. I'm Paige Counts, Public Information Officer for Caldwell County. Today I have joining me Pam Culbreth with Animal Control. Welcome, Pam. It's really good to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Today Pam and I are going to talk a little bit about rabies. Pam, our audience may know, but how many cases of rabies have we had in the county this year?
In 2020, we have had 4 cases of rabies. We've had 2 skunks, a raccoon, and a fox.
Okay. How is rabies transmitted?
Rabies is transmitted through saliva. So if a rabid animal comes up and attacks your animal and they scuffle, there's that potential for exposure. Also, if you have outside animals and you're putting food outside and you're putting an excessive amount out there and it's being left outside, that's a potential exposure because wildlife animals go where there's a food source. And if you're leaving a food source sitting outside, nighttime hours, daytime hours even, they're going to come and find that food source. And if they eat out of that bowl or out of that area where you have that food and then your animal eats it, they've possibly been exposed to rabies.
So one of the things we can do, we'll just go ahead and talk about this right now, is to not put extra food out for outside animals.
What the state actually recommends is that you only put an amount of food out that your animal can eat at that time, and then you take that bowl back up so that there's not a food source there to attract wildlife animals.
And while we're on this subject, you and I have talked several times about outside animals and making sure they're cared for properly. And I know this is a little bit off the subject, but what are the requirements for outdoor animals?
If you have animals that live outside, the state, number one, requires a constant supply of fresh water. If you've got a water bucket out there or you've got a water bowl out there, it needs to have fresh water in it. We see them all the time when we go out on sites where there will be a bucket out there and they'll have water in it, but there's also green slime and there's also dirt and different things. It's very important that it's fresh water. They also require, if you have animals that are tethered or inside a fenced area or a kennel, they have to have a doghouse. Ideally, that is in a shaded area because your animals are just like you are. They can have heat exhaustion, they can have a heat stroke. You want to treat your animals just like you would another part of your family. They rely on you to provide for them, and if you're not providing it for them, they're not getting it. So it's up to us to take care of them and be responsible pet owners and provide that for them.
And another thing this just popped into my head too. What about when we're out shopping and we take our animal with us? And in the car.
We never recommend that unless it's a service animal that's a certified service animal that's going in with you. Because your car, if it's 90 degrees outside, it's well over 100 degrees in your car. And unless you have a way to keep the air running in your car while you're not in it, you just need to leave your pet at home where it's comfortable because you could come back out to your animal in distress. It's also a law in North Carolina that if your animal is seen in distress, that is cruelty to animals. Anyone, even a private citizen, if they feel like your animal is in distress, panting really hard, just laying there not moving, those sorts of things, they can break your window to get that animal out to provide some relief for that animal. So it's very important to remember them and remember maybe they live outside, but they also, when they're loose, they have a way to get to shade and what they need. If they're contained, they don't. So it's up to us to make sure that they can get that.
Okay, we'll go back to rabies now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Pam, you just started down that road, and I wanted to make those, because I think it is very important that people know how to properly care for their pets.
Right.
And most people, I feel like, do.
Most people do. And I think that a lot of times, like taking them with you to the store or leaving them in the car, I think as people, we don't necessarily think about that because there are a lot of animals that live outside in the heat, but in that car, it's just like having a magnifying glass on it with all those windows, and it's way hotter in there. Matter of fact, in the evenings when I go out to get in my vehicle to leave work, I open that door and that heat hits me in the face. Just think about an animal sitting in that for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour while you're in a store. It can have a really tragic end, and that's the last thing we want to happen.
That's true. Okay, now we'll get back to our rabies conversation. What animals, wild animals particularly, most often carry rabies?
It's most often found in raccoons, skunks, bats, and foxes. That's the most common ones in wild animals. Now, domestic animals can carry it too, and one of the biggest issues that we have in the United States is feral cats. Feral cat colonies where you can't get a hold of them to vaccinate them. They are number one domestic animal to carry rabies because they are wild and they don't get vaccinated. So if you have a feral cat colony in your area, keep that in mind because you probably want to treat them just like you would any other wildlife.
As animal control, what can people do if they have a feral cat colony in their area, in their neighborhood?
There are some rescue groups that will help with a trap, neuter, and release program. You can certainly, search that online. A lot of places, if you're okay with the animals remaining on your property, that's great. But you also can take advantage of some of the local spay-neuter programs. They will allow you to bring a cat in a trap, a live trap, obviously. You just bait it, they go inside it, the door closes behind them. They'll let you bring them in there to be spayed or neutered, and at that time they can receive the rabies vaccine. So all of those things are ways to protect yourself and your domestic animals. And, a lot of people don't mind the feral cats because rodent control and different options, and just the fact that they know that in a lot of cases this is just cats that have been abandoned or litters that have been born that somebody didn't really want but didn't have their animals spayed or neutered. They don't want anything to happen to them, but they still need to be protected, and they need to be up to date on vaccines as well so that they're not exposing your animals or someone else's.
What are some signs that an animal may be rabid?
The number one sign that folks think about is a wildlife animal out during the daytime hours. Well, that is not necessarily a sign of rabies. Especially when females have litters, they will go out during the day in search of food, or if there's a limited food source where they've ended up living because of construction or housing developments, that sort of thing, there could be a limited food supply. So they will come out during the day if they're looking for food. Generally, though, if you see a wildlife animal and they see you, they're going to stay away from you. So if you go outside and there's one in your yard and it's overly aggressive or it comes running towards you or your domestic animal, absolutely go inside. Call animal control. If there's been no contact, we'll refer you to North Carolina Wildlife. We'll give you the information to contact them. If by some chance, and we hope and pray that doesn't happen, there is contact, then we would get information from you and let you know what the next steps are that we need to do to protect you and your animals.
Okay, if there's no contact and you refer the person to North Carolina Wildlife, what happens then, just big picture?
What happens then is generally what they've told us, and North Carolina Wildlife is who has advised us to refer those calls to them. They have told us that generally once they start showing signs of the virus, it doesn't take that long for them to pass. So generally they advise folks to either stay away from the animal, keep their pets put up, keep them contained, because again, it doesn't take long once they start showing signs for that to happen. And then when the animal passes, the virus dies with the animal. So.
Okay, now if there's been an exposure, if your pet has been bitten by the rabid animal, what happens then?
If your pet, if you see your pet, in a fight with a rabid animal, or you find an animal, a wildlife animal, in the pen or in the lot or next to your animal and it's deceased, and you can tell there has been, your animal has bitten it or it has bitten your animal, contact us immediately. Contact animal control immediately. There are steps that we have to take, questions we have to ask before we can tell you the proper scenario that's going to happen at that time. If your animal's vaccinated, if it's been vaccinated and its vaccine is out of date, if it's never had a vaccine, there are different steps we have to take for each one of those. So it's very important to call us immediately if you find your animal with a deceased wildlife animal.
And if it's after hours, after animal control has closed, where do people call?
They would call the Sheriff's Department. They have a non-emergency number that people can call. We always have an animal control officer on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On the weekends when we're closed, there's an officer on call. for emergencies. This is an emergency. An animal bite, a possible rabid animal bite, an animal that's been hit by a car, all those things can still be handled. Now, stray animals, we ask that you call during office hours, business hours. Unwanted animals, complaint with a neighbor animal, those sorts of things, obviously. 8 to 5 is when you can call our office for those. But if it's a true emergency, we can still be contacted and handle it. So.
Are the same signs and symptoms true of a domestic animal as a wild animal for rabies?
Yes, yes. They would display a lot of the same signs. Probably a lot of people are not old enough to remember Old Yeller, or maybe Old Yeller, but if you remember in that, he was exposed and then he became very aggressive. He wouldn't eat or drink, and that's a thing. For whatever reason, they appear to have a fear of food and water. They won't eat or drink it. I don't know if they can't swallow, that sort of thing. But yes, they stop eating and drinking, they become very aggressive. So it's very important, if you have that exposure, to contact us and let us tell you what we need to do to protect your animal, to keep it from getting to that stage and them actually developing the rabies virus.
What about if a human is bitten by a rabid animal? What happens then?
Well, obviously we recommend, if you see a wildlife animal, don't approach it. I know they're cute. Baby raccoons are the cutest. Baby foxes, baby skunks, they're all really cute, and you just want to go up and see if you can pet them. Don't. Because just like with any virus, you can have carriers of it that don't show signs and symptoms. So if in the event you are bitten by whatever chance, first thing you need to do is go in the house, wash it thoroughly, wash the area around it, get all that saliva off, wash it thoroughly with soap and water. Then you're going to contact your physician immediately. Once you've washed it and cleaned it up thoroughly, contact your physician, go to urgent care, the ER. They will contact us. They're required by law, whether it's a wildlife bite or a domestic animal bite, they're required to contact us. So worry about those things first. And then, we'll come into play and we'll do what we need to do to, if the animal is captured, then obviously we can send it for rabies testing. And that is the best case scenario, is to be able to send it in. Because if we don't know, you're going to have to take some shots that I've heard are very unpleasant. So best thing, stay away from them. If by whatever chance it happens, clean it, contact your doctor, go to the urgent care or ER. They'll contact us and we'll do what we can to capture it and get it sent for testing.
How do we protect our pets from rabies?
Current rabies vaccinations, pretty much, period. If they're not current on vaccine, it's possible for them to be exposed. The only way to protect them 100% is that rabies vaccine. Current rabies vaccine, up to date. Veterinarians can give a 3-year vaccine. That vaccine lasts for 3 years. You only get it once every 3 years. Certified rabies vaccinators, which is what we are, animal control, can only give a vaccine that's certified for 1 year. They're only $8 at animal control. Some of the veterinarians in this county, if you call them and say, hey, my animal needs a rabies vaccine, it's ready for the 3-year because they don't, it's current. Mm-hmm. Their next vaccine can be a 3-year. So they will only charge you for that. They won't charge you for an office visit if you let them know that's the only service you want at that time. You just have to call around and see who does that, who doesn't do that, who works with you. We do them at animal control Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays by appointment, so call our office. We'll be happy to get you set up for that. Right now we're only doing dogs because we're doing all vaccines outside because of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. Cats are flight risk, so we don't want to risk somebody's cat getting away from them, going across the fence and getting out and getting lost. So, but we're happy to do those for you. It's pretty much a no contact. We have a bag that you put your money in. We ask you to bring correct change. You slide your money in the bag. We have our masks on. We're wearing gloves. We come out to your vehicle. All we need you to do is hold that animal's head for us. We'll give it its vaccine. And we'll open the gate for you and let you go back out and you're good to go. So it's a simple process. You just call the office, make the appointment. We got all your information on that call, schedule you a time, and we just do it. So it's very easy to protect them. We try once a year to have a rabies clinic, which is actually mandated by state law as well. Don't know how that's going to work this year. We did it in the fall last year, but with COVID going on, I'm not sure that that's something that they're still going to require. If it is, then it'll be in the fall, and we'll absolutely advertise those dates when we get those set.
Pam, are there any other tips you have for pet owners that you would like to share?
Probably my number one tip is keep their vaccines current. Treat them like you would your loved ones, because they rely on us to provide for them. If we're not doing it, it's not happening. And the last thing we want is to get a call to come to your residence because your animal's thin, or your animal's in distress, or your animal's off your property being aggressive to another animal or a person, or has bitten someone, and get there and it's unvaccinated. It's not healthy. Other issues are going on. If you're going to have a pet, be a responsible pet owner. Love your animals similar to what you would love a child, because they depend on you. They can't do it for themselves. That's where we have to be responsible and step up if we're going to have them, take care of them. It's very important, because they're a living being just like you are. And so treat them that way. Provide what they need. Make sure they have what they need. And just take care of them and love them, because pets will love you like no human will. It's that unconditional love that humans always want and search for, and unfortunately sometimes that pet's the only place you're going to find it at times. So unconditional love from your pet is the best thing you can get. So take care of them, love them, respect them. Show them that you care about them.
Pam, thank you, and thank you for the reminders. Have we forgotten anything?
I don't think so. If you have any questions, call Animal Control. We have staff, that answer the phone from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And obviously, if you have an issue, an emergency issue, contact the Sheriff's Department after hours, and we'll be glad to do what we can for you.
All right. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.